Ear is a question that sounds like the start of a fairy tale. Can trees really talk to each other? Press your ear to the bark of an old tree and you will hear nothing at all. The forest seems so quiet, so still, but hidden beneath your feet, down in the dark of the soil, something truly is going on, and scientists are still gently arguing about exactly what it is. Above the ground, a forest can look like a crowd of strangers. Each tree stands alone, reaching up for its own patch of sunlight, minding its own business. But a tree is only half a tree. The other half is below, spread out through the soil as roots, and down there in the dark, the trees turn out to be not nearly as alone as they look. Wrapped around almost every root in the forest is a living thread far too thin to see. It belongs to a fungus, not a mushroom you would spot on a walk, but a vast, hidden tangle of pale threads, woven all through the soil. When a fungus and a root grow together like this, sharing the very same space, scientists call that partnership a mycorrhiza. The word looks fancy, but it simply means fungus root. And this partnership is a trade, one of the oldest deals in all of nature. The fungus is wonderful at pulling water and tiny scraps of minerals out of the soil, things like phosphorus that thirsty roots struggle to reach on their own. So the fungus hands those gifts along to the tree, and in return the tree pays the fungus in sugar, the sweet food it makes from sunlight up in its leaves. Neither one would thrive half so well alone. And there is so very much of it. In a single footstep of forest soil, the fungal threads, if you laid them end to end, could stretch on for miles. They wrap root after root after root, weaving quietly through the dark. This part of the story is solid, settled science. The trees of a forest really are joined to fungi, almost everywhere you care to dig. This friendship is older than almost anything you can picture. More than 400 million years ago, long before there were forests, before plants even had proper roots, the very first plants crept out onto bare, empty land, and the oldest fossils we have already show fungi living inside them, gathering food from the naked stone. The fungus, you might say, was the world's very first root. Plants and fungi have been partners ever since. And today, this is almost everywhere. More than 9 out of every 10 kinds of plant on Earth team up with these underground fungi, from the tallest tree in the forest to the smallest flower in a meadow. It is one of the most common partnerships on the entire planet, and it is right about here that our gentle story takes its first curious turn. Because a single fungus does not always stop at just one tree. Its threads spread out through the soil, and sometimes they brush against the roots of a second tree, and a third. So in theory, one fungus might link many trees together at once, like beads strung along the same necklace. Scientists gave this hidden tangle a truly wonderful nickname. They called it the Wood Wide Web. In the 1990s, a forest scientist named Suzanne Simard ran a clever experiment in the woods of Canada. She fed one tree a special traceable kind of carbon, and then she waited. Later, she found a little of that very same carbon turning up inside a neighboring tree, of a completely different species. Somehow, food seemed to have moved from one tree to another, deep underground, along the threads of the fungi. It was a beautiful discovery, and the idea grew like wildfire. Perhaps people began to say a forest is not a crowd of rivals after all. Perhaps it is a community, where trees quietly share their food through the fungal web, helping out their neighbors whenever times grow hard. The Wood Wide Web became one of the most loved ideas in all of nature. The most tender version of the story went like this. The biggest, oldest trees, the so-called mother trees, were imagined sitting at the very center of the web. They were pictured feeding the little seedlings clustered around them, even somehow recognizing their own young and sending out warning signals to their neighbors whenever danger drew near. It is a lovely picture, almost like a family gathered in the woods. And this idea traveled far beyond the forest. It appeared in books and films and talks watched by many millions, in classrooms and gardens all around the world. Trees, we were told, talk to one another. They share, they care. It was exactly the kind of story that feels completely true the very moment you hear it. And that, gently, is just where we need to slow down. Because a good story and a proven fact are not always the same thing. In the year 2023, 3 careful scientists named Justine Karst, Melanie Jones, and Jason Hoeksema decided to do something wonderfully simple. They gathered up all of the actual studies behind the Wood Wide Web, and they read them one by one to see what the evidence truly showed. They looked closely at 3 big claims. The first was that these shared fungal networks are found all throughout our forests. But when they checked, the real field studies turned out to be few and patchy, and often pointing in different directions. The honest answer, they decided, was that we simply do not yet know how common these tree-linking networks really are out in the wild. The second claim was that this network actively helps young seedlings grow, fed through the threads by the bigger trees around them. Here, too, the careful answer came out murky. Some experiments did seem to show a tiny bit of help, others showed none at all, or even the opposite. The results were just too mixed, the reviewers argued, to fairly say that the network truly feeds the young. And the third claim was the most touching one of all, that wise old mother trees knowingly send food and warnings to their very own offspring. When the 3 scientists went searching for solid published proof of this, they found something genuinely surprising. There was none. Not a single peer-reviewed study, they reported, had actually shown it truly happening in a forest. The most beloved part of the story had never quite been proven. So how did an unproven idea come to feel so very certain? Part of the answer is a very human habit. When one hopeful study appears, everybody loves to mention it. It gets repeated and repeated and repeated, until the gentle maybe of those first careful scientists slowly hardens through sheer retelling into a confident yes. The reviewers call this a citation bias, a small spark echoed into a roar. There is a real puzzle hiding down here too. When a trickle of carbon does turn up near a neighbor tree, it is fiendishly hard to know where it actually ended up. It might have flowed into the other tree, or it might simply be sitting inside the fungus wrapped around the roots, never reaching the tree at all, or it may have drifted across through the plain soil by an entirely different path. The honest scientists say, we are not yet sure. Now, this does not mean the whole idea is wrong. Other scientists pushed back, gathering fresh evidence, even inventing clever new methods to trace exactly where the carbon goes. Some of them still believe the trees really are quietly sharing. The truth is, this is a living argument happening right now between thoughtful people who all sincerely want to get it right. And that is not a failure of science. That is science working exactly as it should. So let us be clear and calm about what we genuinely know. That the fungus and the root live together and trade food. This is rock solid and gloriously ancient. That almost every plant on Earth joins this same partnership, also solid. What is still being debated is the next bigger step, the idea that grown trees are deliberately talking, sharing, and caring for one another through the web. That part remains an open question. And it is worth being gentle here, in both directions. It is so tempting to dress a tree up in human feelings, to picture it as a kind mother or a chatty old friend. But a tree has no brain, no heart, and no words. Whatever truly is happening beneath the soil, it is something far stranger and far older than human talking, and it deserves to be understood, patiently, on its own quiet terms. So, can trees really talk to each other? The honest answer for now is a quiet maybe, wrapped up in a great deal of we are still finding out. But press your ear to that old tree once more. Even if it keeps no secrets, you are leaning on a living thing tangled, root and thread, into a web 400 million years in the making. And that, all on its own, is a wonder more than worth keeping.